All right, Anthony, most of us are back.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yep, I see everybody back. So let's call the meeting to order. Anthony, could you please do roll call?
Sir, Councilmember Weist.
Here with difficulties.
Excellent. Widmer.
Here without difficulties.
Lampress.
Present.
Vice Mayor Lewis.
Here.
And Mayor DeGolia.
Yes, I'm here. Okay. Let's see. I think the first item on the agenda are presentations.
Yes, sir. And we do have a member of the San Mateo County LGBT Commission here for the proclamation.
Okay, great. Who is that, Anthony?
It's Layla. I'm going to ask that she unmute herself. We communicated earlier. Laylan, pardon me.
Leland. Okay.
Leland.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Leland. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a proclamation from the Atherton City Council in recognition of LGBTQ Pride Month, which this is, and I'm happy that it is in this month that the United States Supreme Court recognized in its decision of sexual bias, that will include issues of sexual orientation. And I think it's great progress. So it's a terrific Pride Month. I'm going to read a reduced portion of the proclamation because it's very long. But whereas the town of Atherton strives to promote egalitarian principles of equality and justice for all people, recognizing that the diversity of our communities is one of our greatest strengths, we are honored to recognize Pride Month and to affirm the right of all people to sexual orientation of their choice. And there's a whole series of additional whereases, but I, as mayor of the town of Atherton, declare on behalf of the Atherton City Council that we designate June 2020 as Pride Month and recognize the culture, accomplishments, and contributions of LGBTQI2S people, and to work to help advance the equality of LGBTQI2S people. And I've signed it. So we will deliver this to you, Leland, and we're grateful for your.
Thank you, Mayor DeGolia. I really appreciate you having me here tonight.
No
My name is Leland Anders, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I just want to say that I'm very proud to accept Atherton's Pride Proclamation on behalf of the San Mateo County LGBTQ Commission. I'll just say a few words about our commission. The purpose of our commission is to bring greater recognition and visibility to the LGBTQ community in San Mateo County. And over the last few months, our commission has invited all cities and towns in San Mateo County to formally recognize the month of June as Pride Month. This visibility allows LGBTQ residents to know that they are seen and that they are important. And by issuing this proclamation, Atherton is demonstrating how important it is to LGBTQ residents, including youth, seniors, and those struggling with coming out, as I once did, to see their local government celebrate Pride Month. This year marks the 50th anniversary of foundational Pride celebrations in cities like San Francisco and New York. It's also the 5-year anniversary of the Supreme Court decision that legalized same-sex marriage. And to your point, this Monday, we celebrated a landmark decision from our Supreme Court providing federal employment protections to LGBTQ people. Despite these advances, there still is much work to be done. This proclamation means so much to us. So thank you for recognizing and honoring the LGBTQ community with this proclamation.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. So let's see.
We have
a presentation from Atherton Fiber.
yes, sir. And I know Edwin from Atherton Fiber is on the line, so I'm going to pull up his presentation here.
Thank you, Anthony. This is Edwin Alfonso. Thanks for the invitation. Mike was supposed to be here, join us as well, but the last minute he couldn't make it, Mike Farmwell. I'll quickly go through some of the highlights about Atherton Fiber, what's been going on, and any questions that you might have moving forward. Just before I go to the current state, I just want to let you know that there was a transition last few months. Atherton Fiber, for the most part, has completed all construction work in Atherton, and it's sort of moved into a phase where we're going to start deployment and connecting homes. So that's going to be sort of a focus coming in the few months, the rest of the year. Contacts have changed, so I'm going to be heading the operations and marketing. You can always reach out to Mike Farmwell, as well as Jonathan Cho, who's going to be the CFO moving forward. The previous contacts from Paxio and Quanta have been updated in the Atherton website. The current state, as you know, for the last 2 years, there's been a lot of work that's been going on connecting and passing homes. To date, we have Atherton Fiber have passed 3,450 homes. What that means is the fiber has gone past your home. Recently, over the last 6 months, we have connected close to 400 homes. What that means is they've taken a fiber from the pole and connected to the outside of the home. Service installation, and when the technicians goes inside your home and actually connects your router, and you actually can stream 1 gig or 10 gig, depends whatever service you've subscribed for. And finally, there are homes that are in the planned area that they're near completion. Oh, I've just lost the presentation, Anthony.
Anthony?
Planned homes are sort of the areas that you see in yellow on the map on the right-hand side. We are looking to connect them fairly soon in the next couple of weeks. So the people who have been requesting fiber for the last few months, we're going to have them connected fairly shortly in the next few weeks or months. Next slide. So what's in the last 6 months, as you can see, we ramped up fairly quickly in January, close to 43 connections, and February 37. As you know, COVID-19 slowed us down quite a bit, and we went to almost half of what we were installing. This month, we're looking to go back to 50, and I think the next 6 months, given the demand, obviously everybody's working from home, we're looking at 50 to 60 new connections that we're looking at, and the backlog that we have connecting people. At the same time, like I said, a lot of the areas that don't have a service, like the yellow, we're going to have them hooked up and lit up as well. Everything that you see in blue, the homes are ready to be connected anytime. So if anybody wants service, all they have to do is a call or through the website, request a connection, and we should be able to connect them within a few days, if at the most a week. The next slide, Anthony. So what's next? So like I said, next few months, the goal is to keep ramping up the home connections and service install. That's our goal, 50 to 60 homes a month. If there's more demand, we are sort of recruiting more people to get more connections, because we understand the need for high-speed, reliable internet more than ever now. Completing the areas, planned areas, like I said, the ones in yellow that have been planned but never connected. We are also going to be connecting the areas in gray, which have been underground, specifically Lindenwood. So we've been talking to the Public Works in Lindenwood to see if we can lease some of the existing conduit space. If not, we would be doing some micro trenching. So at the end of the day, we're trying to light up the entire, you won't see the yellow or the grayed out areas in Atherton. We're looking to turn that blue fairly soon. And like I said, It's been real, the cost of going undergrounding fiber is extremely expensive. It runs through hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. So that's one of the reasons you see the yellow and the gray areas. But now we are looking at innovative approaches, how we can get that done without having to spend $100,000 to connect a single home. So that should be, that's our goal over the next few months. So getting it from $100,000 price point to maybe in a few $1,000s. That's about it. If anybody has any questions, I can happy to answer.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I do, if I could.
Good, Carrie, go ahead.
Edwin, can you explain, just expand a little bit on the new technology that would impact the yellow and gray areas?
Sure. So the gray areas, obviously a lot of that is underground, and traditional boring was going to cost us a significant amount of capital. So the new technology I'm talking about is innovative way. We are thinking about micro trenching using, sort of an integrated ground penetrating radar, which will increase the speed of deployment, maybe close to 1,000 to 1,500 feet a day. We haven't tried it out. So one of the things we're looking to see if we can actually trial some new things in the Lindenwood area. Secondly, we've also been talking to the Public Works in Atherton to see if we can use the existing conduits that connect the light poles, if we can lease them out, and we could use our own microduct, and that'll speed up the process significantly because we don't have to rip up any infrastructure to do that.
Thank you, Edwin.
No worries.
Any other questions?
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is along the same lines as Councilmember Weiss about the undergrounding versus overheading. And so if I understand you completely, it seems that the blue area is all above ground. It's all been pole to pole to pole. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. Because it's a lot easier to do that. The cost of undergrounding was close to 5 times as much. So everything that's lit up, it's ready to be connected tomorrow.
And then the yellow, you can't do pole to pole to pole because of what reason?
So for the yellow, it's a mix of underground and overhead. So for the most part, some of the areas can be connected, but the underground portion was challenging. But however, we have just finished completing those sections where they thought were going to be challenging. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to have most of the yellow turned into blue. So that should, I think for the most part, 70% of the yellow should turn blue. And once that is done, then we can do a drop in the day and a connection the following day.
One quick follow-up question. The cost of connecting, if you're in the blue zone, is there a website that you can go to, or do you have to have somebody come out and do an evaluation to your property?
No, there's a website. So if you haven't signed up already, you can go to the website and select the product. It's $0 cost to get a connection. Absolutely no cost. They can do the drop in the connection. So the price ranges anyway, depends on what you're looking for, from $60 to $100 for a 1 gig dedicated. 1 gig shared, which you call a GPON, is about $60. And there is a premium product which goes a couple of $100 for a 10 gig, if that's what you're looking for. And we have a bespoke product called a PF private license, where you own the fiber that's getting dropped to your home. And that's a $12,000 product, but that gives you a discounted price for your monthly bill. So instead of having to pay $100 a month, you might actually end up paying just $50, but you're paying the upfront $12,000 to own the fiber that goes to your home. So it's security and sort of a community benefit as well.
So it's athertonfiber.com?
Absolutely. It's www.athertonfiber.com. And we have a couple of videos on that. If you see, how does the whole process work, and, how the service technician comes in and the different stages of the connection. It's just 1, 2, 3. You You place an order, someone's going to give you a call, say, hey, everything's good. We're just going to walk and come out and see everything's looks good. And then if that's all looks good, they're going to run the fiber, do a drop. And the third time that truck rolls over, there's going to be someone who comes inside your home and installs the router. So it's just a 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing no further questions. Thank you very much, Edwin.
Thanks. No worries. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
We are now moving on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar are items 7 through 12.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, it's item number 4, which is public comments.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I skipped that. Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment, Anthony?
No, the only public comments we've received are specifically for item 13.
Right. Okay. So if anybody has public comment, you can do so by clicking participants at the bottom of your page and clicking the raise hand item at the bottom of that page. Or if you don't have access to this interface, you can just state that you'd like to make a comment, or you can send an email or a text to Anthony, and his information is on the agenda for the meeting.
Rick, I can't get my participant to work.
Okay, Greg, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please.
Yes, Malcolm Dudley sent a letter to each of the board members recently, and Jim Jansen and I support that letter, and I just wanted to re-emphasize a couple of the points that he made in the letter, and to see if we could get the board to voluntarily do a survey of the city residents to see if they support closing the railroad stations. The three of us think that decision is a once in 100-year decision, and that it's important enough to ask the voters whether they support it or whether they don't. And I just, the alternative of not supporting it is that the citizens would put an initiative on the ballot which would accomplish the same thing. And I don't know whether Malcolm wants to say something, or Jim, if they're connected.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I have a public comment from Stuart Rosenberg.
I believe Mr. Rosenberg would like to make a comment under item 13, but I will unmute him now.
Yes, Stuart.
It may help to remind people that.
Do you want me to do it after the presentation?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, it would be best to do it when we come to item
Okay.
13, if your comment is specific
Yes.
on 13.
Yes,
because
if you
then
please
the council
remember to
can
call
continue.
on me. Thanks.
No problem, we'll call on you at the time. Okay, I don't see any further public comment. We have a report out of closed session.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The council did meet in closed session for a city attorney performance review, but there is no reportable action.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You have the written report before you, and it's part of the agenda packet. I just have a couple of comments to make. Within the report, there was a notation of what happened at the last rail committee meeting. I received an email from the chair asking that I clarify that information, and that basically both staff and the meeting agenda made clear that the topic of a survey or referendum or initiative was not an action item. And the committee chair informed fellow members that the council made its direction clear and is not seeking advice. The chair advised any station closure comments be communicated directly to the council individually, but no action would be taken by the rail committee itself. The chair wanted to make clear that almost all the committee members adhered to that direction and not discussing the station closure at the meeting. And to the best of his recollection, the committee as a whole did not engage in that conversation opposing the station closure. One committee member brought up the topic twice. The chair asked that member to cease on both occasions. A second committee member asked that the station closure topic be agendized for the next meeting, which is in August, but did not state a position nor engage in discussion at the committee meeting itself. And the chair advised that they do not plan to place the station closure topic on the August agenda as it contravenes existing council direction. Then I also wanted to note that within the PD report, there were 5 bicycle stops that were initiated, is what it says. And then there's a comment that follows that there were 5 verbal warnings issued and that the number of warnings exceed the number of incidents because there were multiple cyclist stops at another. But the two seem incongruous, and perhaps the chief can advise at the meeting if the council desires. That concludes my report.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the city manager's report?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So George, you talked about the council ad hoc subcommittees, and I noticed there's no reference to the fire district, and there was a change in the status of that. And I just want to make sure I understand the current state of play there. Can you give us an update on that?
Sure. The mayor opted to disband the Fire Services Fiscal Review Subcommittee, but did not change out the liaisons. So the liaisons to the fire district remain the same, and that's Councilmember Weiss as the primary and Councilmember Widmer as the alternate. But the subcommittee itself, given the pandemic and everything else going on, it didn't appear that the town was going to be addressing that issue in the short term. So the mayor opted to disband it in the short term.
Okay, but there's still the subcommittee, the liaison subcommittee is still in place.
That is correct.
Okay, so that is still the entity that will be doing any communicating that we're doing with the fire district. Is that correct?
The role of the liaisons are to serve as the town's primary representatives to the bodies to which they are appointed. So in this case, the primary liaison to the fire district would attend meetings and speak based on what the council's overall direction is or feedback is to that particular board or body.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure that I don't think that answered my question is, who is authorized now to speak to the fire district on different issues, town issues, and particularly related to the fiscal service review?
Perhaps the city attorney can advise a little bit with respect to how it works within the Brown Act.
Sure. So for purposes of communications, the liaisons still serve as the city's representatives in engaging in communications with the fire district. However, it's not limited to now. Prior to the disbandment of the subcommittee's sole focus was to discuss the potential detachment from the fire district. So now the liaisons may still communicate with the fire district, but the parameters of that discussion can range from anything within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the fire district. I would caution the members of the council and the liaisons, however, that there must be caution in communicating these discussions outside of publicly noticed council meetings so as to prevent a Brown Act violation from occurring. So if we have the 2 members of the liaison communicating with the fire district and they wish to report back those communications, that should happen at a council meeting and not through email or any other forms of communication with the council.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a little unclear on that. I'm sorry, Ona. So are you saying that any council member can start negotiations with the fire district if they so choose to?
No, I believe that there's no further discussions on negotiation efforts with the disbandment of the subcommittee. However, the existing liaisons to the fire district are continuing to be the liaison. So those are the 2 town representatives that should have any kind of discussions with the fire district. And if they wish to bring back something to the council, it should be done at a duly noticed council meeting. But I don't believe, since the subcommittee has been disbanded, there should be any further efforts amongst the 2 liaisons to negotiate with the fire district.
Well, I feel, first off, there was no discussion on this thing. It just kind of happened. And I realize the mayor can set committees and he can probably, although I don't see that in our rules of engagement, that he can just decide unilaterally to cancel one, but I'm sure he probably can. However, on the item 15 of the 19th of March 2014 meeting, which was attended by Widmer, Wiest, Lewis, and DeGoya. We only had 4 council members. We passed 4-0 council procedures and the council handbook. Part of that was Appendix A to the council procedures, and under 11.2, any ruling of the mayor may be appealed by the entire council at the request of a council member. I am so doing so. The mayor shall then call a roll call vote to determine whether or not his ruling shall be upheld. So I'm doing that at this point in time.
So
Do I need to do a roll call vote, or?
Can I just get some clarity, please?
is this exactly on the agenda, Mona? We can put this on the agenda and I can explain what I did. That's no problem, but this is under the city manager's report.
It is under the city manager's report. It is something that was included part of it. I'm looking at section 11.2 of the rules, and it does say that any ruling of the mayor may be appealed to the entire city council at the request of a council member. The mayor shall call for a roll call vote to determine if the ruling is upheld. So I would ask that if there is going to be a discussion on this specific issue, and if a council member wishes to make more of a robust appeal to the council, that we separately agendize this and bring it back to a future council meeting. But I think that
Well, it doesn't say it could be agendized at a future meeting. It says right there, if somebody appeals something, and my displeasure is that there was no discussion, there was no communication. I just got a copy of a letter because George told me that had happened, and so it says here that any member can appeal it. I'm glad you looked that up, and the mayor has the right. He's supposed to call a roll call vote, and I believe he needs to call it now to determine whether or not there's.
I don't take issue with doing the roll call vote now, but if we are going to be engaging in a robust discussion that is going to include the pros or cons of this decision, that should be separately agendized. So it's really going to be based on whether we're going to simply have the roll call vote to appeal the mayor's decision to disband the subcommittee, or whether, and I'll turn this back to you, Council Member Widmer, if there's going to be more of a robust discussion, if other council members have questions and want to engage in further discussion.
Well, I'd like to have the vote now, and if the mayor would like to then have conversation with the subcommittee so that we fully understand that, then he can then make a decision and everybody can be happy with it. But just, the mayor is not a strong mayor. He is one of us. And he just can't go make decisions to just cancel, people from a meeting. There's been nothing going on with regards to this committee. And I think this was all out of line.
So
well, you've had your little say. I think that I haven't had an opportunity to say why I did it. The mayor has the right to establish the committees, and the mayor can disband a committee if it's not functioning. And I don't have any problem with an appeal or explaining why I did it, but I don't think it makes any sense to have a vote on something without understanding the issue. That would make no sense.
If I can interject at all to the mayor.
Please.
I am just as a process issue, and really between your decision to do this, it's not really what my point would be. I would just ask in the interim. There isn't a negotiation or anything like that, but the district is still moving forward in a direction and having conversations related how to respond to the matrix review, the matrix component, and their response to even as of last night. And I'm kind of in a precarious position as being the liaison, but as Mona just addressed, you know, I'm not here to engage the district related to the matrix component at this point, but what would that process be? And can I get a little more understanding related to that so that we, I guess, can get all on the same page?
Well, I think, I mean, as the liaison, that's an important issue, and it's totally appropriate to report that back to the council and for us to talk about it. And we have a section on council reports. I mean, my understanding of the subcommittee is that it was specifically pulled together to try to negotiate a solution with the fire board. And you guys tried to do that, and it wasn't successful. It didn't go anywhere. And there was nothing happening around it. I've reached out to the president of the board to try to reinitiate that discussion, and I've got no response. So my perspective was that nothing was happening. I understand. I mean, you definitely need a forum to be able to talk about issues. But that's not, the subcommittee wasn't that forum. The council's that forum.
Yeah, no,
If I could, I'm sorry, Carrie, to interrupt, but I get concerned because now we have 3 council members reaching out to the fire district to discuss the same thing. I actually think we should maybe just take a vote, and it'd probably be cleaner to have 2 who are assigned to this task, so we don't run the risk of 3, 4, or 5 of us all having conversations with the fire district on the same issue.
As a point of order, can we get 2 people that can be that conduit? I just don't know. And is that really is that really what we need to do, is just create that 2 direct contact people? I mean, because as we know, the district is still moving in a direction, but there isn't you know, the mayor is correct. There isn't negotiations occurring. So we're kind of at a standstill as far as our side's concerned, but that may not be what their side is doing. Does that make sense?
So if I can just clarify a couple of things. First of all, we should never have more than 2 council members, because then we definitely run the risk of a Brown Act violation. But I want to turn our attention back to Council Widmer's request, because we need to make one of 2 decisions at this point. Either we need to take a roll call vote to appeal the mayor's decision, or we need to agendize this for a more robust discussion. So
I would like to agendize for a more robust discussion. I think we're having a robust discussion without having it agendized. I'm a little confused about it all, and I would like to have more understanding from everyone's perspective, and to understand what we're really looking at going forward. So I don't see that tonight is that night, because it's not agendized and we have a very full agenda.
And may I also add, maybe really through the mayor here, I apologize, is maybe the definition of what that group is, or if there's a subgroup that changes from that, you know, and maybe that is the question, is a further discussion on, do we change what that is? Because it's still going on. It's just that there isn't a negotiation to turn anything right now.
Yeah, and Carrie, I think that's a very good point. And that's what's the purpose of the subcommittee. If there is a real purpose, then we should have the subcommittee. I don't have any problem with that. What I understood its purpose to be just wasn't happening, because, you know, we tried and it didn't get anywhere. Why don't we agendize it and have a discussion of it and figure out what we want the subcommittee to do? And I don't have a problem having a subcommittee as long as we've got something that the subcommittee is going to do. My understanding of what the subcommittee was targeted to do, which was try to resolve this issue through the negotiations that you guys have previously had, is that it wasn't going anywhere, and there weren't negotiations, and basically the fire board wasn't responding to us. So I'm happy to talk. Let's put it on the agenda and talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is going to be an important, no offense to any of my other colleagues. I think it's important to make sure that we still have some form of conduit. And if it isn't the negotiation team, that the members of the district still have somebody other than, other than having to go to the mayor each time to have a discussion, or maybe it is the mayor, but I understand my two other colleagues' concerns. But I think it's a different perspective in, we're really not in negotiations at this point. The district hasn't been, willing to have that conversation.
Right.
Can we just reinstate the committee until we have that conversation?
Well, what's the committee going to do?
It's
Sure, you
going to
could
make clear.
reinstate
It's
the
going to
committee,
make.
but
Okay,
the committee doesn't
great,
have a
great.
task.
Well, it has a charter. It has a mandate, and the issue is, Rick,
The mandate
that-
was to engage in negotiations.
Understood, but you've reached out now to them separately. So in the absence of committee, we now have fractured efforts coming out. Whereas with a committee, it's focused, and we at least know this is the channel it's supposed to take. It avoids Brown Act issues, and it provides clarity to the council.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of summarize the three things. That number one, the mayor has to solely in his official duty either appoint or disband the subcommittee. As soon as it becomes a council action, it becomes a formal standing committee, and Brown Act rules are applicable to that standing committee. That's first. Second, we have a request from Councilmember Widmer to take a roll call vote, but then we also have, I'm counting 2 council members, maybe 3 actually, who say that they want a more robust discussion. And despite acknowledging that we might need a more robust discussion, we're continuing to engage in discussion. So this specific topic has not been agendized, so I don't want to continue it unless we come back in the future. So I guess what I'm asking the council is, Councilmember Widmer, do you still wish to ask for a roll call vote, or do you wish to pull your motion back and request that this comes back at a future meeting?
I believe we should have the committee in place until we've had the discussion to disband it. So I'd rather have the roll call vote. And then after the discussion, we can decide that we're going to disband it.
May I interrupt a second? Rose, the point that you're talking about with respect to Councilmember Widmer on the appeal, if the chair makes a ruling, is specifically, can a member of the body interrupt the speaker? The general rule is no. There are exceptions. A speaker may be interrupted for the following reasons: privilege, order, and appeal. The appeal period that you're talking about is only with respect to the interruption of a speaker.
I don't believe that's the case. Why does it say any? Why does it say any ruling of the mayor?
It says if the chair makes a ruling that a member of the body disagrees with, that member may appeal the ruling of the chair. If the motion is seconded and after debate, if it passes by a simple majority, then the ruling of the chair is deemed reversed. But it's with respect to interruption of a speaker.
It doesn't necessarily say that in item number 11.
It
does not say that in item. It does not say that in item 11. I've taken the time to read it, and I remember. So, well, I'm sorry. You can look it up. March 4th.
Yes, seeing as how you just brought up something that happened 6 years ago.
I apologize if I can interject again. In the interest of moving forward, I understand your perspective, Mayor, and I understand my colleague's perspective, and I think that this is worth a further discussion. Sooner than later, if we can put it on maybe the study session component, just to make sure that we keep that conduit open between the district and the town, and having that structure. So I'm willing to move forward and put it on an agenda for a separate date to have a more robust discussion.
I'm in agreement with you, Councilmember Wiest.
Okay, I agree with that.
Is there a particular date, July 1st or the regular meeting?
July 1st.
July 1st, if we could. I just want to make sure that, we can still, if there was an effort by the district, that nobody gets in trouble by violating the Brown Act, because I'm sure Mona wouldn't be happy.
No, and that's
No.
just 2 weeks from now. I really think we need to look at this in a lot of different, I'm not prepared to be talking about this right now. It wasn't on our agenda. I'm blindsided, and that's not a good feeling.
And between now and July 1st, just as a reminder, our liaisons should be our points of contact for discussions with the fire district.
Yes,
I think he is the only
that's,
contact.
yeah, Councilmember Weist, and then the alternate would be Councilmember Widmer.
I withdraw the appeal. I withdraw the appeal. We can move on.
Thank you, Councilmember Widmer. Appreciate that.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Does anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item from the consent calendar?
No, so moved.
Do I have a second? To pass the consent calendar? These are
Items number 8.
7 through 12.
You're looking for a second, Rick? I'm happy to second. Sorry, I was on mute.
Robert Lempres.
Yeah.
Councilmember Weist,
Aye.
Widmer,
Yes.
Lempres,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lewis,
Aye.
and Mayor DeGolia.
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 13. Which
Now,
is a public hearing.
Did we agree to have that move to the end, George, or are we going to move?
That was a question for the council.
Okay.
Well, I think we have most people on the call are probably here for this item.
Yeah, that's probably good. Well, I can get going.
Okay, then I'm
No,
leaving.
we have council member comments first.
I'm sorry.
All right, I'm out.
Okay, we'll text you when we're done.
And just for the record, to note
Yeah.
that Councilmember Widmer refused himself due to a financial conflict of interest.
Okay. And is Lisa Costa Sanders introducing this item?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Lisa Costa Sanders, Town Planner. I'll be giving the staff presentation. And I believe Anthony is going to run the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Anthony. So while that's queuing up, the item before you is the request of Menlo College to construct a residence hall on its campus. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Menlo College is located along El Camino Real at the corner with Alejandra. The site is within the Public Facilities and Schools Zoning District. The campus is adjacent to Menlo School Campus, Carton Athletic Field, residential neighborhoods, and commercial businesses along El Camino. Next. This shows a location map of Menlo College campus and the Menlo School campus. To orient you, El Camino is located on the right side of the screen, Alejandra along the top, and Valparaiso at the bottom. The new residence hall building is proposed to be centrally located within the existing campus and will be surrounded by other campus buildings. The new building requires the removal of landscaping, paving, as well as a small pool. Next. The new 3-story on-campus residence hall is proposed with 147 living units with a total of 291 beds. This includes 19 units that will be dedicated to low-income students. The project provides new housing on campus for existing students that are currently living off campus and commuting into the school. And the purpose for this is to address the housing affordability issues that are currently in the community. The entitlements before you is a conditional use permit, as well as a tree protection zone exception for 1 tree. The Planning Commission at its May 27th meeting voted 4-1 to recommend the City Council approve the project. Next. This site plan shows the location of the proposed new residence hall that's shaded in yellow. And as you can see, it is surrounded by existing buildings. and it's located just to the south of Alejandra Avenue. Next. It shows the elevation of the proposed building. And the next slide is another view of the proposed new building. Next, thank you. The town does not have residential density limits in this zoning district. The school provided a plan that shows that they can build 97 units on the site, given the site constraints and within the town's 34 height limit. The 97 units became the base case project. And of that base case project, they proposed to provide 20% of the units, equating to 19 units, as affordable to low-income students. This qualifies the project for the state density bonus provisions. State density bonus provisions include concessions or incentives to provide for the production of lower income housing and is required to be approved by right by the town with no further review authority. As such, the project is entitled to a height waiver from the 34-foot height limit to achieve the additional units. The building is proposed at a height of 43 feet, which results in an increase of 9 feet over the height limit. The units are required to remain affordable for a term of 55 years. Next. The town's municipal code requires a conditional use permit for residential uses associated with primary non-residential uses of the property on the same site. And the code goes on to describe dorms as an example of that use. The request is consistent with the Menlo College Master Plan and staff is supportive of the use permit. Next. As I indicated, they're also requesting a tree protection zone exception. Due to the location of the proposed building, the project includes a request for a tree protection zone for tree number 58, which is a valley oak described as being in fair condition. This graphic with the green circle estimates the required tree protection zone of 10 times the tree's diameter or 45 feet. As you can see, there's insufficient room between the buildings to shift the location or the orientation of the residence. The building code does require separation between the buildings, as well as the fire access requirement for a road around the building to access it on the sides. Next slide. The required tree protection zone is 10 times the diameter of the tree or 45 feet, and the requested tree protection zone is 4 times the diameter of the tree or 18 feet. The town arborist has reviewed the request and is not supportive of the request due to the potential impact of the tree. However, planning staff is supportive as there's no other feasible location to build the housing, and it provides much needed affordable housing for existing students. Next. The town retained a CEQA consultant to evaluate the project, including traffic. Based on the analysis included in the packet, the project qualifies for a CEQA exemption pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15332, class 32, which includes urban infill developments. We also conducted a traffic study, although not required, and that found that there was no additional traffic associated with the on-site student housing. And the town's CEQA consultant, as well as the traffic consultant, are here this evening to answer any questions you may have. Next. The college sent a letter to the neighbors in October of last year, informing them of the proposed project and inviting them to a meeting to discuss it. And we've been informed that 2 neighbors attended that meeting. The town mailed notice of this public hearing to all property owners within 500 feet of the site on June 5th. Next. Oh, I'm sorry, I seem to be missing a slide. I had added a slide relating to public comments, so I'll go ahead and discuss those now. The town has received several public comments since the publication of the staff report, and I believe all those have been provided directly to the council. I'll just describe a few of those now. The comments include a concern with the existing traffic and increased traffic as a result of the new on-campus housing. As I noted, the town retained a traffic consultant to evaluate the traffic. That study found that providing housing on campus, traffic would be reduced as less students will be commuting into the campus from living off-site. We also received questions relating to increased usage at Carton Field. As the new dorms will serve existing students and the college has not presented any plans for improvements, we do not expect an increased usage of the field. Several commenters requested the town impose an enrollment cap on the college. If the town were to impose an enrollment cap, the college would be required to self-report its enrollment figures annually. Staff finds that this condition would be difficult to verify as well as enforce. If there is a concern with traffic, staff would recommend adding a condition requiring the college to implement a transportation demand management plan and limit the number of vehicle trips in and out of the college parking lot that is located along Alejandra. A transportation demand management plan would include programs that reduce single occupancy vehicle trips to and from the site. This could include carpool, shuttles, and other trip reduction measures. Staff would be able to monitor compliance with this condition annually by conducting driveway trip counts. And if they were to fail to meet that driveway trip cap, we would require increased transportation demand management measures. And as I indicated earlier, the project also qualifies under the state density bonus for incentives, waivers, or concessions. And the applicant has applied the request for a height increase for the additional units. As the town does not have density limits, the town can approve additional units beyond the base density bonus provisions. So there's been a few questions about the calculation and the number of units. So as I indicated, the town does not have density limits in place, and we're not limited to just approving the base project with the bonus units. The applicant has proposed to build out the third floor, which results in 16 units beyond the density bonus for efficient construction. The project is proposed to address off-site housing affordability, and staff evaluated the project as a whole and found it to not be impactful under CEQA findings as well as the use permit findings, and addresses much needed housing for the existing student population. The council does have the option to limit the approval to the base project plus density bonus, which would be 131 units as opposed to the 147 units that's been proposed. I'd be happy to either answer your questions now, or you can move on to the applicant's presentation and public comments, and we can answer your questions after that. Thank you. That concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. Lisa, you suggested either taking questions now or taking questions after another presentation?
The applicant would like to make a presentation, and then I know you have a number of public comments. So if you'd like, we can hold the questions till the end.
No, I think if people have specific questions to your presentation, we should take those questions now so they don't get lost.
Happy to do that.
Does anyone on the council have a question?
I did have a question specific to the tree, the heritage tree.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's simply, are there any plans to do anything to help mitigate if that tree is damaged? They're planting something somewhere else, they're doing anything else? What's going on there?
I can have the arborist talk about the measures that have been included in the use permit and the tree protection zone requirement. But we could have a requirement that if the tree fails, that absolutely it be replaced. But there are a number of measures in there to maintain the health of the tree and to monitor it. And I believe Sally is available this evening if you would like to expand on that.
I actually would love to hear what Sally had to say about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add to Mike's question. I have a question for Sally, which is she has opposed the reduction in the tree protection zone. And I understand that she has some proposed solutions if we were to go forward with the requested reduction TPZ. And I'd like to hear what those are.
Hello, this is Sally. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So as part of my recommendation, I would require a monthly arborist report and the arborist to be on site during the grading, the foundation work, any kind of hardscape and stormwater and utilities. So the arborist should be on site through all of the stages of the construction and giving me a report. I also want them to check the tree protection fencing and also for pruning, because it's a 3-story building, we want to make sure they're not just pruning off half the tree to make room. So the arborist will need to be on site for like crane access, window install, because of it's a 3-story building. He will be required to be on site. And then for paving, there were specific requirements with using GeoGrid, which is less impactful to the roots. Yeah, there were a few specific requirements for the paving. So even though I didn't recommend the removal, I feel like if their private arborists can maintain these recommendations, that the tree has more of a chance. When I visited the tree was semi-stressed because it is surrounded by hardscape. So that's why I wouldn't recommend less than a 6 times TPZ. But the applicant, Menlo College, is willing to follow these recommendations and preserve the tree. But we could require something if the tree is to fail. We could require something.
Sally?
Yeah.
I apologize, through the mayor. Under this topic, did Sally, at any point in time, have you considered the removal of this tree because of the condition of the tree? And I know that's hard for an arborist to.
No, that's okay.
Remove
The applicant never requested the removal of the tree. They have always been willing to work around it. I don't think at this time I could approve the removal at staff level. The tree is stressed, but it wouldn't fall into the dangerous category right now. And so they decided not to apply at Planning Commission for the removal because they're trying to preserve it. It's kind of a catch-22.
Okay, Mike, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's very helpful. I'm not sure. I would like to hear more about what options we have, what we could require if the tree fails. But yes, this answered my question. Thanks, Sally.
Hey, Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Just real quickly. Sally, thank you so much for your thoughtful analysis in wanting to preserve this tree. And thank the applicant for being willing to work with the arborist in the care and maintenance of the tree throughout construction. However, and I'm going to put words in the applicant's mouth and I think this is what Councilmember Lumpers was trying to get at, and maybe Councilmember Wiest also, that if it should fail, would the applicant be willing to plant, a number of other large trees? I don't know if any of you have gone through the campus recently, but there's been countless mature trees planted throughout the new landscaping and new greenery and through the remodeling process. And I think that there is a sensitivity by the members of the board of Menlo College as well as the trustees to have trees on their campus. And so I applaud their efforts to try to retain this tree because no one wants to cut down a mature oak. But in the event, I think that it does fail. If it fails, I think we could ask them to mitigate that loss. That's all.
Okay. Is that all the questions? Why don't we go on to the next presentation then? I take it that the next presentation is from the applicant.
So I am ready. This is Stephen Weiner, and there we go. There's my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The picture on the cover slide, I do want to pause on it. Many of you know Menlo College was founded in 1927 as an all-male institution, and while it wasn't in its constitution, it could have as well been an all-white institution. It was indeed both all white and all male, for many decades after it was founded. Menlo is now an incredibly diverse institution, pretty much any which way you want to define that word. In terms of ethnic and racial diversity, we are now the 10th most diverse college or university in the United States, and it's a point of pride for us. I mention it both because it is an aspect of Menlo that I think is important to note, but also because it will relate to the decision that we made to pursue the opportunity to add housing to our campus. Go to the next slide, if you would. Just listing the names of the principals on the project who are on this call to support me, answer questions as needed. Our consulting arborist is here, and while I couldn't see him, I suspect he was nodding his head in concert with Sally's comments. Our project manager, land use lawyer, and many of you know our director of facilities, Bob Talbot. Next slide. Reading the newspapers, you'll be aware of the fact that colleges and universities are joining businesses of all types all across the world that are struggling right now. Within the higher education landscape, small colleges are struggling more than most. We are relatively fortunate, although this has been a very difficult time for us, but we had some momentum coming into this pandemic, and that has helped us ride it out as we moved for the very first time in our history to delivering our education online and solely online, which is what we're still doing to this day with our summer semester. We plan to return to in-person classes in the fall semester, but it will be in yet a new model for us. 100% of our classes will be will be both online and in person. The faculty member could be participating online. Some of the students could be participating online and vice versa. That very well may be a footprint for our future as we use this opportunity to explore ways in which we can embrace technology to improve our delivery, to provide flexibility as the model of higher education evolves, which it is sure to do. The model for higher ed, it was subject to a lot of debate before this pandemic, and the wounds all colleges and universities have suffered are surely going to lead to changes in the way in which higher education is delivered in the future, in ways in which I can't now foresee totally. The need for additional housing on campus. We have approximately 500 beds on our campus, and they are 100% full. We have over 300 students living off campus, and I don't need to tell all of you what the cost of living is in Silicon Valley. I come back to the diversity of our campus. Just as we're racially and ethnically diverse, we are also diverse in terms of the economic background of our students and thus their ability to pay for their education. By forcing 300 students to find housing in Silicon Valley, we are adding to the challenge that they have getting to the commencement stage after 4 years. It's true at Menlo College, it's true at colleges and universities everywhere. Graduation rates, retention rates are significantly higher for students who are in residence on a campus. When you compound the challenge for our students of facing the expense that they have finding housing in Silicon Valley, many of them are hunger challenged. It makes them increasingly unlikely to finish. Our goal is to provide an opportunity for those students to come to campus to enjoy the opportunities that a Menlo education offers, which for most of them means doors that will open here in Silicon Valley. We raised the funds for this new dorm, so if it is built, we will be able to assess charges that are well below market rates. For those rooms that are covered by the housing allowance, the 20% where we have to provide them for low-income students, those rates probably will be the same rates for all our students, but just because they're pegged to the local market. But All our students are obligated to, who live on campus are obligated to participate in our meal plan. They enjoy the greater experience that's available to residential students that isn't available to our commuting students. This project is not driven by a desire to expand our enrollment. This project is driven by desire to enable those of our students who aren't able to live on campus now to fulfill their education and enjoy what I call the transformational aspect of the education experience, which is that residential piece. If we could go to the next slide. There's slightly fewer beds than the slide the staff suggested, because we're modifying the number of resident assistants in the dorm. So we're pegging 288. The prior slide said 291. It is internal to campus, as you heard, and it preserves our quad as something we call holy ground. And the picture to the right here is a drone picture of our quadrangle as it now exists. And what you see in the coloration there, the dark green is sod that we put down relatively recently in concert with our expansion of the quadrangle when we redesigned the layout of the walkways. We intentionally expanded the quad to make that even more of a centerpiece for the student experience at Menlo College. As has been mentioned, with part of our landscaping, we deliberately added a number of mature trees, 92 trees in all. So there is no question about our commitment to maintaining a vibrant landscape and a vibrant campus experience. Parking. I mentioned that our dormitories are 100% full now. 2 years ago, we had a challenge with parking on campus. We were never 100% full, but there were mornings I could look out my office and see people circling looking for parking spaces. Last year, our enrollment increased. We have never had a problem with students finding parking. The parking is free for students on Menlo College campus. They have to have a sticker on their car, but there is no expense, and our lots are not full. There is no conceivable reason for students to park off of campus. It's more inconvenient to them, and it doesn't cost them any less, given that on-campus parking is free. Why did parking demand decrease this last year? We think in part it's because of the Uber era in which we live. We think in part it's because of the fact that we 3 years ago banned freshman parking on campus, and we think that instilled habits that are persisting. And we fully expect that if the 300 students or 288 are able to move to campus, we will see an even lower demand for parking. Traffic patterns. We conducted a traffic study in April, which demonstrated that fully 64% of the traffic in and out of our campus comes through our El Camino entrance. Our students use the Alejandra entrance. The fact that we have so much traffic on El Camino says that there is not, the students who use our Alejandra entrance are residential students. Those students are not coming and going. It is our commuter students who are coming and going, and that is what we're trying to solve. Next slide. Again, proposed building is sized for our current enrollment. You've heard the discussion of the density bonus and the opportunity we have to exceed the height limit. And the fact that we are preserving 20% of the rooms for low-income students. That either fortunately or unfortunately will not be a difficult target for us to achieve. We have significantly more than 20% of our students who are receiving Cal Grant A or Cal Grant B as currently. Most importantly, because of where the building is proposed to be sited, it will not be visible from outside of the campus. Next slide, please. The requests that we have, grant the density bonus, approve the CUP, and yes, approve the exception to the tree protection zone, but with the precautions that Sally Bentz described. One last comment here. I know some of the letters have addressed activity on our athletic fields. The athletic fields are shared facilities, and the headmaster of Menlo School is on the call as well, and he can speak to that fact. If we have actually, Menlo College has actually decreased the intensity of our use because several years ago we dropped football from our lineup. We have no plans, frankly, no ability to add sports or to add members to our teams. Our growth in students in recent years has been with non-student athletes. So the proportion of our athletes has actually decreased as we've marginally grown. Speak just a little bit to our growth. When I joined Menlo almost 8 years ago now, we were about 600 students. For a small college with a very small endowment, that is not a sustainable enrollment. Last fall, we were at 894. That's better, but it is still extraordinarily difficult for us to manage with 894 students given our student mix, and that's something we're committed to sustaining. We think it does a service to those students. It does a service to Silicon Valley, since that's where so many of them pursue their job opportunities. Next slide. Next slide, please. One more picture to close it out, which is from our orientation session last fall, which again speaks to the purpose that we exist, which is to generate the kind of engagement that you see here. Happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions from the council?
I do. If I could.
Carrie? And then
thank you very much. A couple questions. You mentioned that their planting program, and the Vice Mayor also mentioned you've done a tremendous effort at planting additional trees. Did you implement an actual care program to go with those trees? You know, not being facetious, but I read the arborist report, and I didn't see a whole lot of positivity coming out of the arborist report with the average being fair to poor, excuse me. I just didn't know if we're planting trees, is there a program to make sure that they stay healthy?
Yes, we increased and brought in new landscaping in concert with the re-landscaping. The trees that are listed in FAIR, which I think there are 2 of the large oaks, are very old trees on our campus. We also, starting I think 3 years ago, implemented an annual tree inspection program. All our trees are now numbered and tracked individually.
And another question, thank you very much for that. I will surely follow up with that. The issue related to overflow parking that seems to impact Alejandra and Brittany Meadows. Is there anything where, I mean, those are obviously students, and they may be students driving vehicles without stickers that particular day, and that's why they're searching outside of traditional parking spaces? Is there any flexibility on the school's part for students that do possess stickers, but it may not be on their parents, to avoid flowing on Brittany Meadows and Alejandra?
So far be it from me to be argumentative, but you said they're obviously Menlo College students. I differ. They could very well be Sacred Heart students. They could be Menlo School students. They could be parents of either of those institutions. I have no reason to believe they are Menlo College students.
Okay. Okay. And just, I guess, another follow-up question. I apologize, Mayor, taking
no problem
of Steve's time. Related to screening in the direction of Alejandra, since that is, you know, since this is this will be the highest building, is there the screening component to avoid the structure from being seen from Alejandra?
Sorry. Yes, our view is that because there's a building, another building, existing building, that will block the view, and there are redwoods on both sides of the existing building, we don't believe that it will be seen from Alejandra when it's completed.
Okay. Thank you.
Elizabeth, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you for your presentation, President Weiner. A couple questions. You said that even with 890 students, it's very difficult for a small college to balance the budget, and it's really dependent a lot upon philanthropic donations. Is that correct? Can you?
Yes, yes. But I attempted to make 2 points. One was about our current state, but also about my hope that we are going to have flexibility for an uncertain future. Uncertain both with respect to the modality in which we deliver education, but also uncertain with respect to the sources of aid and philanthropy that we depend upon these days.
Mm-hmm.
Our students, the majority of our students come to us with a combination of federal and state aid. And given what's happening to state budgets, given what we see at the national level, I'm very concerned about the viability of that model going forward.
So even with the scholarships that are granted and these students come with, they're given, you don't get a full tuition with those grants.
I wish.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that the new dorm would house only freshmen, who would not be allowed to have cars at the school.
We haven't designated the dorm as a freshman dorm, but we do ban all freshmen from having campuses, from having cars on our campus.
And how many freshmen do you have?
This year we have, I think it was 289 freshmen.
Okay. Do faculty members also live on campus, and would faculty members be housed in that facility?
We currently have 19 different houses and apartments on campus for faculty and staff, but we are not including additional faculty and staff housing in the new dormitory.
It didn't make sense to me. I just thought I'd ask the question. But
yeah.
So traffic along Alejandra obviously is an issue. And I live at the corner of Alejandra and Emily, as you know. And so I drive Alejandra to El Camino all the time. And directly across from the playing fields, the tennis courts and things, there's like these it's off-street parking. They're pull-in parallel spots, but I think it's a holdover from a time gone by, because it really is kind of junky, messy. Kids hang out there all the time. They, unload all their furniture, and there's always debris. And I mean, have you given any thought to how to make that part of Alejandra a little bit more attractive and less messy? Because kids will be kids, and they'll hang out and smoke cigarettes or whatever, and then there's trash and things, and that's kind of our ingress egress of residents from El Camino.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the components of our hoped for long-term landscaping plan puts those parking spaces behind a garden wall, with then access that snakes on the inside of the fence for people who use the entrance that exists now on Alejandra to our O'Brien parking lot. It is a dream. It's feasible. I want it to happen for all kinds of reasons, but I don't currently have the funding for it.
It sounds like you've given it some thought, and maybe you need to get one of your developer friends in line and light a fire on them.
Can't I have one of your developer friends? I keep tapping all of mine.
Yeah, but I think yours have bigger taps.
Fair enough.
Anyway, okay, thank you very much.
Are there other questions?
I do have a question, Rick, if I could.
Please.
And it's more general. I want to pull back a little bit. I didn't get a chance to go through the Menlo College master plan. But you mentioned 800 and however many, 95 students or whatever. It's challenging to make a school work at that size. What does the master plan call for in terms of, size at the end of the day? And what are your current ambitions? Are they what the master plan is, or do you have some thoughts about how big you'd like the school to get someday?
So the master plan was updated late last year in the halcyon pre-COVID days, and I put a figure of 1,000 down for what we hoped would represent our near-term growth. We are restricted or constrained not by our dorms, not by our parking spaces. We're constrained by our classroom space. So the opportunity for us to expand very much is incredibly limited just because of the current classroom space. Again, we're in a transitional time. I don't know what the future is going to bring, and the extent to which we're able to embrace technology in our classrooms in creative ways might allow us to exceed that growth, but exceed it with students who are not actually on campus, at least not on campus all of the time.
Right. No, please continue. I'm sorry. I was agreeing with you.
I thought I was done. So the discussion about enrollment caps, and I know that's been bandied about in the context of this proposal. I urge the council to consider that in the context of a request, should it ever come about from us to construct a new classroom building, because that becomes the time when we have the opportunity to grow beyond the constraints that now really bind us. I do hope.
If I could, I'm sorry, just asking a slightly different question, or a slightly different perspective on the question, which is, not even from the council perspective, but maybe from a neighbor's perspective, what expectations should they have? You mentioned near term 1,000. What does near term mean? Like what should they be thinking about the growth of the campus?
Yeah, again, back to my described halcyon days, I thought we'd be at 1,000 this fall, and saw us longer term heading to 1,200. I think that it will be a climb to get to those numbers. We won't be there this fall. Not given current conditions, and it's the question about how quickly we can bounce back is largely dependent upon how quickly the economy bounces back, which in turn, of course, is dependent upon the course of this pandemic. And boy, do I wish I could predict any of that.
Right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Stephen, I have a question. I know that the issue of an enrollment cap has been bandied about, and I think you've addressed that. What about the transportation demand management plan? It sounds like you don't really have a problem right now, that there's excess parking that's currently available, and I don't know how that relates to parking that is accessed off El Camino versus parking accessed off Alejandra. Maybe you could comment on that. But one of the big concerns that Atherton always has with our schools, because the schools are located in residential communities, is the congestion that's associated with the transportation related to schools, both daily and longer term transportation.
Right. Yes. And again, one of our goals with this project is to take as many as, I don't know what the number will be, but something close to 288 cars off the street. Having said that, we have other levers we can pull if it turns out that we do have a parking issue. Many other schools ban parking for far more than just freshmen. So we could move forward with a ban on freshman and sophomore cars. We can't do that now because we have to force so many of our sophomores off campus. We have a policy that 100% of our freshmen live on campus. but we don't have the luxury to enforce that beyond the freshman year. If we have the additional capacity, we have the option of forcing sophomores as well not to have cars. But the monitoring traffic, again, our parking spots, the availability of parking on this campus is a wonderful indicator of the issue. But we're also perfectly amenable to looking at traffic through the Alejandra entrance. Unfortunately, there are three entrances to our campus: the main entrance, El Camino, the Alejandra lot, and the one that runs along Wunderlich Field. Wunderlich and El Camino are shared access points. That's not just Menlo, that's also Menlo School. And in the case of El Camino, it's also local commuters who get impatient waiting for the traffic light and turn, when they're heading south on El Camino, they turn right into our turnaround, make the U-turn so that they can turn right on red and continue their commute. So traffic counts at El Camino wouldn't be very effective at indicating Menlo College demand, but the Alejandra entrance, which I think is the issue that's most concerned for our neighbors, and understandably so, that one we could be monitoring.
Okay. I don't see any other questions from the council. Let's take public comment. I know Stuart Rosenberg has a comment. And if anyone else has a comment in the public, you could, probably the easiest way would be to send a private chat to myself or to Anthony, or to raise your hand. Stuart?
Great, thank you for the time. Anthony, if you could give me a heads up at 2 minutes, if I'm limited to 3 minutes, that would be great, so I could really get my bullet points. My office looks right at the parking by the cafeteria on next to Wunderlich Field. And I mean, maybe those are high school students that are parking there, but there's really quite a bit of activity, cars coming and going, and I think it's an issue. I wouldn't, just downplay the issue of traffic and just say it's solved. Number one. Number two, I want to give a shout out to Chop Keenan, because actually parking according to a CUP is not allowed next to the cafeteria. And I had asked the town council or to George to kind of work on that, and Chop got an architect, and he developed a turnaround for trucks. And so long as there's no students parking there, which is probably about 75% of the time, it does allow the trucks the ability to turn around so you don't get all the backup beeping. So thank you to Chop. I did meet with Steve earlier in the year. I was one of those 2 neighbors, and he explained the dorm to me, and it was a very cordial meeting. He explained that this is a done deal. There's nothing the neighbors could do about it. I discussed my concerns. I suggested easy mitigations for those concerns, and Steve basically said, well, really isn't anything he can do. But I asked him to please put on his creative hat and try to work those things out. This is a symbiosis. It's not only about the college. There are neighbors, and the neighbors are impacted by the college, despite what everyone is saying. I will say that since Steve has taken over as head, things have gotten better with the neighbors. He has Robert Talbot, who is easily accessible, Linda Tuchel, so that when the college has their loud parties all night long, at least there's somebody to talk to see if we could remedy that. That is a major issue for me. The drunken, loud parties that go well into the night, we can't sleep. I don't know, that needs to be addressed, and I'd appreciate it if that would be addressed at this meeting. The other person is Linda Tuchel. So if they open up the college fields 2 hours earlier than the city rules allow, there's somebody at least to talk to. My following comments are not meant to be punitive to the college or adversarial to the college, but I'm always looking for a more collaborative approach like I had with Chop Keenan, so that there can be more of a symbiosis between the college and the neighbors. And I think we deserve a quality of life as well. In looking over, I'm a doctor, so I know nothing. I've never built anything. I don't know anything about SECA. But when I read over the SECA exemption, it talked about 96 rooms allowed, entitling them to a 35% density or 130 rooms.
Mr. Rosenberg,
They're asking for 147 rooms, which is a 50% bonus. So I think they lose their SEQA exemption if they ask for a 50% bonus. So I don't really agree with Lisa on that one. She knows a lot more about it than I do. But I did bounce it off a land use attorney, and he felt strongly about my position. So you can ask for 50% bonus, but then I don't think you're exempted from SEQA. That's the position I'm taking. Finally, in terms of a school cap, as you look at the drawings that Stephen presented, the college is small. I mean, this is a small footprint. They've already gone from 600 to 875 students. The high school has a cap, both high schools, Sacred Heart and Menlo. This small footprint, the ecosystem is just simply overwhelmed, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my neighbors as you read their letters. And since the school has no plans in increasing the cap, increasing the number of students, let's ask for a cap. Let's get a cap. They can always ask to have it raised. That puts the neighbors at least in a position to negotiate with the school. I never got anywhere with the access road until I threatened to pull the parking. And then Chop Keenan was great. Yes, am I done?
Yeah, yes, sir.
3 minutes, okay. Anyhow, thank you very much for your time. I'm welcome to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
So I don't have any other public comments emailed or texted other than the ones that council already received in advance of the meeting.
Okay. Well, let's bring it back to the council for questions or comments.
I apologize.
Can we? I've actually got a public comment from Than Healy. Why don't we take that before we take our council comments?
I'll be brief. Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes.
I'll be brief. Despite the fact that Stephen threw my students under the bus for driving around by Carton Field, I am in support of this project. I will say I have concerns that I've shared with Stephen about the height of the project and the way it will look into our pool. I don't like the mixture of college students and high school students in bathing suits, and Stephen has committed to finding solutions for that. I think we need to work out the construction in close proximity to an athletic facility that's outdoors, and I just worry about the health of our kids. There's a strong possibility that we won't end up being able to use that facility, but I'm also convinced that Stephen and the college will work with us on it. So I'm in support of it for what it's worth as a neighbor of the college and as a collaborator, sometimes an easy collaboration, sometimes a more difficult collaboration. But I just have to say, as an educator who's trying to find housing for his faculty, I think that what the town of Atherton, the statement that it could make right now about providing access to college for students who are largely not served by other educational institutions in our society, at a time when, frankly, we're having lots of conversations about what we could do better to undo some of the systemic racism that exists in our country. I think the town of Atherton, which I think has a lot to, a lot to sort of speak to on this topic, this could be a real statement. This could be a way that the town of Atherton steps forward and says, this is how we support students who are coming from backgrounds that have not featured a lot of privilege. These are not largely a student population, in my understanding, that has been well represented in terms of, lots of social networks and lots of advantages. And I think making it easier for the college to enroll students and have those students find housing and not leave with a lot of debt that they have to be saddled with. That's something that Atherton can do to make a difference in not just in these kids' lives, but also I think also in society. And so I would encourage the council to consider seriously the opportunity to approve this project. Thank you.
Okay. Carrie, was that you that was about to make a comment?
Yeah, I was actually. Thank you very much, Mayor. I do have some concerns related to the tree, I believe identified as tree number 58. And I think it kind of got resupported with maybe the age of the tree component. And I really didn't get a great feeling from Sally, but I do have a concern that it is a mature oak and a public safety component. So that's still rattling in my head. I'm not quite sure if it meets the, based on the report that I looked at related to the historic aspect of the trees. I think this would fall into the historic aspect of the trees, and being rated fair to poor, well, tough date, doesn't make me feel very comfortable. The density, the additional, the president made a comment related to, and I totally agree with a comment to try to keep the housing cost component down, but I don't, and to try to make that equal, but I don't think that that is and if I'm wrong on this, the idea of lower income housing is a different tier than all student housing in general, because it just is. It's to make it more possible for students that just can't afford anything. So I'm not quite sure if that was really answered. I agree that student housing should be as cheap as possible. I am concerned related to potential visual impacts, and I know that I heard that there's less of it, but I can't get it from an overhead perspective of buildings, this and that, for homes near Brittany Meadows, the closest proximity, and Alejandra. So I'm just not quite sure on the height limit component. I understand what staff said. In a build out component, it'll actually be cheaper to create more housing units to make that entire floor, which is the top floor, to match the floor beneath it. I think that kind of, the student cap component, I know that, things are changing, and so, in a perfect world, maybe less students will actually go to campus, but, that would help everybody. But I completely agree, we don't know where it's going. So it's difficult to assume we're a cap component. And I believe the staff report said present is 875 students, current enrollment. Is that a capped enrollment at 875 or a capped enrollment at 900?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh,
so
there's no cap.
There's no cap at all. Okay. It does interest me. I apologize that that if the growth component of the school was greater than a figure to be determined, that another conversation would be initiated and another engagement with the surrounding community members. So I just don't know where that's possible or if it's even possible. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Elizabeth or Mike?
Rick, this is Paul Getty. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Paul.
So a couple of questions. I'm really concerned about why the city is not considering a cap on enrollment. It seems like this is an open subject, and we're just going to roll with letting the schools continue to build in the face of other communities that have limited enrollment. What are the city's thoughts on that? Are we going to go from 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,500 to 2,000 without restraint?
Well, I mean, that's an issue that we're talking about right now. We've actually finished public comment, but we will address that issue in the course of our comments and questions.
Yeah, I would hope that you would. And Stephen, I want to ask you a direct question. We manage a lot of student housing properties across the country, and I'm seeing many of our student housing managers deal with COVID as the fall season is coming up. What are you exactly doing in the colleges and the schools to deal with COVID in the fall?
We're undertaking the same mix that probably you are and that you're seeing on other campuses. It's a combination of facility changes, which include the social distancing, behavioral changes, which include the things we know well by now, hand washing and face masks. And then it also is a test, trace, and quarantine policy. I'm happy to go into more detail, but I don't know that that's what would be helpful here.
Do you have any cases of COVID that you've discovered on campus?
No, none.
Mr. Mayor, you need to probably reopen the public comment period if you're going to allow continued public comment. And it's really not a dialogue, it's an opportunity to provide a comment, and then you can direct the feedback.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's finish with the comments from the council and then we can assess that. Are there other comments from the council?
So, through the mayor?
Please.
I have some comments, unless Councilmember Widmer, Lempers would like to go before me.
No, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to let the residents know, my neighbors, my kind of immediate neighbors, and I've read all of the letters, and I understand where Stuart's coming from, and I feel your pain. I really do feel your pain about the increase in traffic. I've lived here for over 20 years, and the morning and afternoon traffic coming from El Camino up Alejandra, and then over to Emily, and also coming from Emily and down Alejandra is intense. It didn't used to be that way 23 years ago when I moved here. Life was much different. So I tend to agree with President Stephen Weiner that it's not all college related. I don't think it can possibly be all college related. However, there are, I believe, hyperactive college students who like to war around the block, Alejandra to Emily, and it's a straight shot to get to Valparaiso, gunning their I don't know, Dodge Chargers or whatever they are, and expressing their vim and virgor, whatever. So that has to stop. The student parking along Park Avenue in Emily, there's not so much student parking along Alejandra in front of the residences. There may be along in Brittany Meadows, and that's just unacceptable. That really should not be allowed to happen. The student parking along Park and Emily has just increased, and it's intolerable because you cannot walk your dog, you can't walk your baby safely along Emily, and it's really gotten worse over the last few years, I think, because so many of our young teenagers, as soon as they get their license, they get their own private car to drive. And so they drive to school, and there isn't enough on-site parking, either at Sacred Heart or at Menlo School. And if you're saying that you've got plenty of on-site parking at Menlo College, you should open your doors to them and charge them for it if they're not a student, and get them off of our streets. So I really think that traffic is an issue, and I already raised the issue about the parking along Alejandra across from their playing fields, which I think really should be considered and cleaned up. It's an eyesore, and it should be a priority for them. I also must remind our residents, because we've experienced all this traffic, that the last 3 to 5 years we've been living in a construction zone, and there's been a lot of trucks, a lot of construction traffic, vendors back and forth. So fortunately that seems to, because there were 3 or 4 houses completely under construction. So we have to put that in perspective. Yes, Menlo College is in a residential neighborhood, as is Menlo School and Sacred Heart. Menlo College, I think, was almost here before any of them, because it was built in 1927, you know, over 90 years ago. And so I think that was the year that the old house that I bought here was constructed. But anyway, and then our neighborhood has grown up around them. So I support the residents in their concerns about traffic and about the noise created with the delivery trucks at Wonderlic Field entrance. And I really hope that you hear us loudly and clearly, and that you will do everything that you can to help mitigate that. I don't believe a cap in enrollment is going to create any teeth in the matter. As our planner said, Lisa Costa-Sanders, they only have to report their enrollment. We have caps for the other schools, and you know, when they report enrollment numbers, that you know, you have to question it. So a traffic management plan is enforceable, and if we can create that as part of this whole process, I think that we would be, as a town, better equipped to enforce the traffic mitigation policies. So that's what I would like to do. I fully support the new housing development, and I think that it's been done with a lot of thought and care and planning on it. I don't believe that once it's built that the residents along Brittany Meadows or even along Alejandra, because there's not that many that actually face Alejandra, will notice. With the extra density bonus, with the new SB 899 that Scott Wiener is putting up for the housing density bonuses, that we will be able to use some of these extra rooms, the low affordable housing rooms, as part of our housing element solution. And we are going to need every house and every unit that we can get in order to comply with the housing unit numbers that are coming out. So I just want to, and I'm sorry I'm going on, but my little grandstand here, I always never forget that our founding father, Faxon Dean Anderson, wrote to his business partner in like 1860 after he purchased 640 acres here, which became Atherton. And he was encouraging his business partner to move to California into the Atherton area because, and he said, there's education here for your family. There is education for your children and a dignity of living on landed estates down the San Francisco Peninsula that is convenient and accessible. We cannot forget that we have that privilege. And yes, the college has got to be a partner. I agree with Stuart, it's a symbiotic relationship. And I believe having excellent educational facilities in our town increases our property values because people want to come and they want to live here. And for the college, I think we're doing a good job of, educating and creating leaders of our future in Silicon Valley. So that being said, I'm in support of the CUP and everything. I just want some teeth into a traffic demand management plan. Thank you.
So I have a couple questions, but Mike, if you'd like to go, you're welcome to.
No, go ahead, Rick. That's okay.
So Lisa, I have a couple questions for you. First, could you, let me just state what they are and then you can answer them. If you could please address the issue about the density bonus that Stuart Rosenberg brought up. I have no perspective on it, but I'm sure you do. And secondly, I'm just not sure if a enrollment cap to limit the number of students that can be at the college is something that's appropriate in the context of discussing a dorm. And I know there's certain limitations about what you can include as conditions and requirements and what you can't. For example, I'm aware that with this density bonus that certain restrictions go away, certain land use restrictions like the height limit go away. So if you could address those two things that have come up in the public comments, I just don't have any real perspective on the implications.
Yes. So the town does not have a residential density limit at this location. Most communities limit the number of dwelling units per acre. So a multifamily dwelling unit in another community might be 50 units an acre. At the public facilities and schools zoning district, we do not have a residential density limit. So what the applicant did is they took the site and they looked at what's the maximum size of a building that could be constructed there when you apply the building code setbacks and the fire access road requirement and the town's height limit. And they determined that that base project that complies with the town's regulations would be 97 units. And then they set aside 20% of those as affordable, which triggered the state density bonus provisions. That gave them a 35% density bonus or an additional 34 units, resulting in 131 units. So then they look at how do you construct this additional 34 units? And the only way to do so would be to increase the height. And the request is to go to a 43-foot height, where the town's height limit at this location is 34 feet. So the minimum kind of required project for the town to approve is 131 units. What the college has proposed, though, is to maximize their ability to provide housing for their students with the existing campus capacity would be to building out the footprint for 16 additional units in a total of 147 units. And that's the project that was analyzed under the CEQA for the traffic and for any other impacts, was this total project of 147 units. And it was found to be CEQA exempt from further analysis based on the total project build out, and that there would not be a traffic impact. So staff is supportive of the larger building size, but at a minimum, the council would need to consider the 131 units if you were concerned about the additional units. So I hope that answers the one question. And was the other one relating to the enrollment cap and the transportation?
Yes. I mean, they may be two separate issues, the enrollment cap and a transportation demand management plan.
Yeah, so I think our concern about the enrollment cap, if we've had this at other institutions, is does it really limit the impacts? Does it limit the traffic impact? Does it limit the impacts to the community? And so we're trying to look at what are those impacts and how can we address them appropriately and make sure that we have some good teeth in there that we can enforce and we can monitor it. So if you were to put on a straight enrollment cap, that would be something that would be their total enrollment. So it could include daytime classes, nighttime classes, virtual classes, and you would have a cap at that they would then self-report. And I just don't know how the town would independently evaluate that. So what we looked at was, the neighbors have expressed many concerns, but one of them that we can really look at is traffic. And so a better method that's used in many communities is try to reduce the number of trips that the project generates. And so you do that with the transportation demand management plan that the college would prepare They would submit it to us for our review, so we'd have it on file, and then they need to implement that. We would then conduct annual driveway counts when they submit their master plan to make sure that those trips do not increase over, say, the 2019 level that was counted and reported in their master plan. If it does increase, we're going to go back to them and ask them to have further transportation demand management measures to continue to reduce those trips. And that is something that we have some enforcement ability on. I think the other items that were addressed is loud parties, and that's something that the police chief can certainly address. I know they're not exempt to the town's noise ordinance, so I believe he's here if you have any questions relating to that.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like from your response that the issue of a enrollment cap is something that could be considered, but that you don't think that it would be very effective, that the more effective instrument would be this transportation demand management plan. And I'll just say in that context, I think that what President Wiener's comment was about the more important area to focus on is Alejandra is correct. And I know that Elizabeth was talking about a transportation demand management plan, and I think that is something that we should put in place, and particularly with respect to Alejandra. And maybe I'm not familiar with the area with the road enough, but I know that there's two entrances from Alejandra, one going past Wunderlich and one going into the dorm area. And I think that could both be addressed in a transportation management plan.
Yeah, and I think before you conclude, the city attorney does have 2 additional conditions she would like you to consider. And if you had a condition you wanted to add relating to the tree, I would like Sally Benz to assist with the wording for that condition.
Sure. Mona, did you want to add something?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. There are 2 conditions of approval that were inadvertently omitted from the conditional use permit, very standard of all planning applications. And I believe the applicant conceptually agrees with them too. The first one is compliance with all applicable state and local laws. And the other one is to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the town from any claims related to approval of the action before you tonight. We'd also potentially put in a condition with respect to the TDM, and as Lisa just mentioned, tree mitigation, if that's the pleasure of the council.
Yeah, okay. Mike, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would. Although I agree with a lot of what you and Elizabeth and others have said. A couple of things. I want to make sure we don't conflate issues on this. And to that end, I think that the issues with regard to Carton Field are significant, but nothing we should be addressing here. And so I'm going to sort of set those aside. I think you asked, or rather, the question came up about whether we'd like something done with the tree. I actually would like to see if the tree is harmed, I'd like to see some plan in there to replace the tree is killed, remove some plan in there to replace it robustly. And it's pulling back though, I really wanted to stress something that Stephen and Than mentioned, which I think is important for the town, which is Atherton is a unique community, and we are largely homogenous in many, many ways. And I think this is an opportunity to help permit the construction of some low-income housing that is used for primarily diversity purposes, for a diverse population, which I think is important. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind as we look at this. I also think that the idea of a transportation management plan is a good one. And I'd be supportive of that. I think it should recognize, however, that by moving more people on campus, that's a substantial step in a transportation management plan. I want to make sure that the college got credit for that. So generally, much like Elizabeth, I think that I'm proud of Menlo College, that it's in our town, and I think we are lucky to have it. I I think they've generally been, a good neighbor. I think that it's important that the college and all the schools have good relationships with their neighbors. And we've gotten a peak today that, that's not always the case. And as I'm limiting myself to think about this particular application, which I am in favor of, but I do think we need to somehow grab hold of this larger issue and work through any way we can. On the idea of, by the way, a cap on the total number of students, I don't think it's forced today. And I also don't think there's enough certainty in today's world to do anything really logical about that, because the model of education is changing, day by day right now. And we're not sure what the fall is going to look like, or what fall 2021 or 2022 is going to look like. And it may be that they have far more students who are either not on campus at all or on campus a limited period of time. We just don't know yet. So I would not address, I wouldn't push for a student cap right now. So I think that covers the issues, but generally supportive, concerned about the trees in particular, but think that there's a lot of good that's being done here.
Great. Okay, let me just add a couple comments and then we can move on. I think that's right about the enrollment cap. I mean, an enrollment cap gives a jurisdiction, at least I'm looking at what's happening, which is very active management around an enrollment cap between Palo Alto and Castellea that I think we're all probably aware of. And it's a difficult situation. And given the changes that are happening to education right now, I think that Council Member Lempers's comments are exactly right, that we don't really know where things are going. So that's probably not the best place to focus, even if we could in this situation. But I do think that the concerns about traffic and congestion, both automobile and foot traffic on Alejandra, is very important, and that we should put in place some form of transportation demand management plan to address that. In the past, of course, we have talked about some change in like a no-turn left turn lane from Alejandra onto El Camino during certain time periods. And we haven't moved forward with that. I'd be interested, not now, but over time, to hear from the residents if they see that as a solution. But I think with respect to the school, it's appropriate in this context. I agree with what Mike said, that we're, by bringing students onto the campus who've previously been off campus, we're going to have less traffic trips. So that is to the school's credit, and that should reduce the amount of traffic problem. Although that traffic was previously coming into the El Camino entrance, and any of those cars that those students have, I believe now will be coming in off Alejandra. So I think a traffic management plan is appropriate. With respect to the tree, Valley Oaks are the prize in this area. They're absolutely the prize, and they are threatened and not as easily grown as live oaks. And you hate to lose one. So, but if one is really unhealthy, then it's a safety problem, and we shouldn't preserve it just because it's a valley oak. My understanding from what I heard Sally say is that this oak can be protected, and if its health can be improved because it's been subject to so much hardscape and something can be done to help that going forward, I think that would be a good thing. So I think there should be a plan on how to protect this tree. And it sounds like the school is supportive of the suggestions that Sally had. So we should include those in the approval, as well as the items that the city attorney brought up. I think that's all that I have.
Do we need a motion?
We do need a motion. This is a public hearing, so I want to be clear that we have opened the public hearing. It is open, and we do need a motion.
And we're closing
Yeah,
the public
Rick,
hearing.
our public comments shut down at this point.
Well, they have been, but we can reopen public comments. There have been a fair amount of discussion. This is a very unusual format, being in this Zoom environment. I don't want to continue this forever, but I want to give the residents an opportunity to express their thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rick. I respectfully disagree with comments related to the fact that the schools cannot deal with changes in, on-site, internet learning and so on and so forth. I see many, many colleges across the country where we manage student housing, where they've been effectively able to come to grips with how to manage the key issues of on-site students. We're talking specifically about issues that are created by having an unlimited cap of on-site students that are going to create more issues for the neighbors. We are seeing students now wandering our neighborhoods in greater numbers, not wearing masks, smoking pot, doing all kinds of things. The issue is not with respect to people that are doing online learning. It's specifically with respect to people that are living on site and not having any caps with respect to that. And I don't know why the city is moving away from considering what other communities are doing in this area. It makes no sense to me.
Are you done, sir?
Is there any other public comment?
Mr. Rosenberg, if you'd like, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I like what Mike said. The college should be more proactive with the neighbors, but they simply aren't. And for years, we had a committee that met with the chief of police and everybody at the college, and they cannot be moved. And for instance, they play soccer on Wunderlich at their games, and they have a loudspeaker that is literally 1 foot from the King's home. And we've tried to get them to move to Carton Field, because their, loudspeakers are appropriate. And we've talked about, putting a decibel reader because it goes way above the city limits. We don't want to shut down sports, and that would affect the high school as well. But goodness gracious, work it out. There's no excuse for that. You have an easy solution. You're destroying a neighbor's property with loud, unnecessary noise with loudspeakers. Come on. But there's no forum to address it. And there's all kinds of issues. Loud dorm parties with drunken underage students going till 2 or 3 a.m. where you can't sleep. That's just not, and the police don't want to do anything about it. They've got other things to deal with. And, we need your help. And, none of the neighbors are opposed to this dorm. I'd like to see it at 130 because personally, I think that's the law. I've gotten legal advice from experts. They all agree with me that, it's a 35% density bonus, period. And okay, go to 147, but please figure out a way to help the neighbors. It's a small little footprint that you have so many students on. If you put another 300 full-time students on the campus, they're going to be on the soccer fields on the weekend. They're going to be on Carton Field. I just totally disagree with the city that it is not going to impact the neighbors. It will impact the neighbors. And it's just very frustrating to me. Nobody is listening. We wrote letters. You read the letters. Nobody hears us. So please help us, hear us. Allow the 147, but then put restriction, have the college meet with us, or do you negotiate it? George helped us for a while. Then he said he really wasn't interested anymore.
30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just make a comment, this is Anthony, the city clerk. Public comment is being opened again by the mayor. The 2 folks that have already spoken have already exhausted your time. So if the mayor will allow it, we'll continue to take public comment, but I am running a 3-minute clock to be considerate of everyone else on the call.
Is there any other public comment?
There's one from Greg Conlon.
Okay. Greg?
I was off on another Zoom call for an hour, but so I'm not sure my comments are relevant, but I wanted to share with you. Tomorrow, you'll have specifics on schools coming from the health officer of San Mateo, because they're going to open up the schools on a county-wide basis.
Sir, is this in
Greg, let's be clear. This comment needs to be with respect to the Menlo College dorm. We will
Isn't
take
that
public
what-
comment.
That's
at
what
the
I was
end.
talking about.
Okay,
I
go
assume.
ahead. Sorry.
But if it's not relevant, then I apologize.
No, go ahead. If it's
No,
related.
I was just going to say that those rules are coming out, I think, tomorrow. So I don't know whether they'll help the situation or whether they'll deal with it at all, but I at least wanted you to be aware that there will be some rules coming out tomorrow applying to all the county schools.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
None, sir.
Okay, Elizabeth, you were going to make a motion?
In the record, please reflect that the public hearing has been closed.
Thank you, Mona.
Great. Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion that the city council approve the Menlo College conditional use permit, the density bonus, and tree protection zone TPZ exemption certificate, and add to that we develop a robust transportation demand management plan to mitigate the traffic issues that exist due to Menlo College and Menlo College students. And I think that's all, but I would like to hear, let Stuart know that we hear him. And I think I said, I do hear you, and I read your letter, and we can talk offline about how to engage more proactively with the college. But I think, is that enough of a motion, Mona?
Councilmember Lewis, I would also ask that you add the 2 conditions of approval relating to compliance with state and local laws and the indemnification.
So I would like to add the 2 conditions that our city attorney Mona just articulated.
And then
And
just
Elizabeth, something about the tree.
And well, the tree, and that, right. And if the tree is not able to live for whatever reason, but I think it's been said in their proposal that they will do everything to protect that tree and keep it alive through the construction project, but that there will be other trees, valley oaks and other trees planted to replace it. And I think that should be negotiated with the arborists to figure that out. I just know from, if you've walked the project, walked the project, you see they have planted mature like 90 trees. And I think that they would be, the college would be very open to agreeing to replacing a big oak tree if it fails because of their construction.
Okay. Can I suggest a friendly amendment to that tree component?
Yes.
With Sally's language, but also to, because Sally had mentioned that arborist report monthly, and the health of the tree is a concern and a public safety issue exists, and reducing the TPZ. Can we have it for a duration after the project, that it's monitored so that we see the health of the tree, and if there is a concern, that we address it immediately?
I think Sally said she had put that into the conditional use permit process.
No, it's not. I don't think it's in the, she said that it had been agreed to by the school, but that it wasn't formally in the permit. And I think it should be formally in the permit.
Absolutely. I took it to be that it was in the permit process.
Could I add an amendment? I also think that we need to have a formal mechanism for the school to meet with the residents. We had that in the past. This is an issue every single time that we've got something that the school wants. And it sounds like there isn't a formal meeting. I think there should be, every 6-month meeting between the school, probably between the college and the school and the residents. I'd like to have some mechanism to realize that.
Do you think that's really needs to be part of this conditional?
Well, I think we're making a change on the campus, right? We're bringing another 300 kids permanently onto the campus who've been there partially. I think there's some benefits to that, which we've mentioned in terms of reduced traffic going in and out. And there's some potential detriments to it, in that you've got more kids that are around all the time, and you know, they're going to be active, they're going to be kids. And I want to have a mechanism for the college and the residents to interact. If the residents choose not to interact with the college, but the college, but there's a formal mechanism for that interaction, then fine. But I don't want it, I don't want it to be where the residents feel like they don't have a way to talk to the college.
So can I make a suggestion, Mayor? Maybe you could appoint an ad hoc committee to begin that process and to meet with the neighbors and the college and school staff and figure out a format for that and come back and report.
George, do you have a suggestion on the best way to realize that kind of a mechanism?
Sure. You got Stephen on the phone here. If Stephen says, I'd be happy to set up something like that, I'd be happy to work with Stephen and Than, and we can put together some regular meetings. And then if the council wants to participate, the mayor can appoint a subcommittee to participate as well. We'll bring snacks.
Stephen, would that work for you?
Snacks, I like that.
Absolutely. Who's
Okay,
bringing
so
the snacks? George is bringing the snacks?
George bringing snacks.
Oh, even
It's
better.
not a formal condition, but you know, he's publicly on the record now saying he's gonna be there and we'll share the cost of snacks. Oh wait, I don't know if I heard that part.
Okay, great. I heard a yes.
Yes.
Okay,
That's my motion.
great. And do we have a second?
I'm happy to second it, although I'm a little confused by it. Can we rephrase it before I second it, so make sure we got it?
Yeah.
Or Mona, can somebody encapsulate it? Yeah.
I believe that the motion was to move staff's recommended action and approve all of the entitlements and the categorical exemption for the conditional use permit. Additionally, add a condition of approval that the applicant agrees to comply with all state and local laws. The applicant agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the town from any claims arising from its decision to make this approval tonight. A condition that requires monitoring of the tree after completion of construction of the project, and review by the town arborist to ensure that the tree is healthy or replaced as appropriate, and a traffic demand management plan to address the traffic concerns that were raised tonight.
And if the tree fails, that they would replace it with a comparable tree. I mean, I don't think you can replace a 100-year-old oak with it, you know, but
yeah,
replace it with trees.
Mona addressed that.
I didn't think she just said, okay, fine.
Okay. Councilmember Weist.
Aye.
Limpress.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lewis.
Aye.
And Mayor DeGolia.
Yes.
And we'll note that Councilmember Widmer is recused from the item.
Okay.
So we need a text.
Moving on to item 14.
I've texted him.
Great. Anthony, is this your item? This is the consideration of an appointment to various town committees and the Planning Commission.
Yes, sir. So as council's aware, there was a recruitment conducted for several committee appointments. All were the result of term expirations on June 30th, 2020. Today, we're going to be appointing 2 members to the Audit and Finance Committee, 1 member to the Bike and Ped Committee. We don't have any applicants for the Environmental Programs Committee. although there is one vacancy. We're going to appoint 2 members to the Park and Rec Committee. One is for a regular seat, the other is for the foundation appointment. 2 members to the Planning Commission, although we had 2 applicants and one of them withdrew their application. I believe she's going to be on the phone to speak to her application for the Park and Rec Committee. She may also still consider Planning Commission depending on at council's pleasure. We have 3 vacancies for rail and 2 applicants, and 3 vacancies for transportation and 2 applicants. There's one committee where we have more applicants than we have open spots, and that is for the regular seat for the Park and Rec Committee. So my suggestion would be that there are a couple of the committees where council will have to assign terms. What I have here is I have the cutout pieces of paper like we've done in the past when we're in person. I drop them in the box here. You'll all trust that I'm doing that appropriately. And then I'll draw one and we can assign the term based on that drawing. Or at council's pleasure, council can assign a term as they wish to the council, to the person that they'd like to appoint. So to review that briefly, for the Audit and Finance Committee, of the 2 appointments, one will be appointed for a 3-year term that'll expire in 2023, and the other would be appointed to a 4-year term that would expire in 2024. The Bike and Ped, both appointments would be for a 4-year term, or excuse me, the appointment would be for a 4-year term, so there's nothing to assign there. Park and Rec, again, it's the regular seat's a 4-year term, and the foundation appointment is for a 2-year term. And for Planning Commission, one would be for a 2-year term expiring in 2022, and the other would be for a 4-year term expiring in 2024. Rail Committee, both applicants would be getting 4-year terms, and for the Transportation Committee, we have, again, 3 openings and 2 applicants, so we can give both of them 4-year term, and then the final opening would be for a 1-year term.
Okay. Let's go through it one at a time and move as quickly as we can.
Certainly.
So the first item would be
Audit and Finance.
Audit and Finance Committee. We have 2 applicants and we have 2 different terms. And unless anybody on the council prefers a different method, I'm fine for Anthony just to pick them out of the hat.
And I know we have Kate, who's one of the applicants, on the phone if you'd like to hear from her.
Well, we have 2 applicants and 2 openings. If Kate, if you would like to say something, you're welcome to.
I just want to say thank you for the consideration of serving on the committee, and I look forward to being helpful to the committee and the council, and I'll leave it up to Anthony to pick out of a hat on the terms.
Great.
Okay. So just to rephrase, the one that I picked, that'll be the longer term. Okay.
Great. Do it.
Congratulations, Kate. You're the big winner.
Thank you.
Okay. We can take a motion at the end after you've assigned all the terms for all, whether there's not more applicants than openings.
Yes, sir. Next, we'll need to take a vote on.
So let's come back to Bike and Ped.
Okay.
And
So
environmental programs, we don't have an applicant. For Park and Rec, we have 2 applicants and they're assigned to the terms, right? Because
well, no, we have 2 for the regular seat, and then we have 1 for the foundation appointment. That's Frank Merrill. So the next one we would need to assign terms to would be the Planning Commission, but that's if Sandra Livingston still wants her application considered. I don't know if she's on the call. She did request that it was withdrawn, and I think it's probably conditioned on if she's appointed to Park and Rec or not.
And Mayor, can we just make sure that there's no public comment on this item?
Sure. Actually, I see Eric Lane having his hand up. Eric, would you like to make a comment?
I'm interested in making sure that whomever wants the 4-year term gets it, because I've been on the commission for a period of time, but I am interested in staying on if there aren't enough applicants, because we're in this transition where I'm comfortable doing the online meetings and it's worked out so far so well. So I'm only interested in a 2-year term if you don't have, if the other person doesn't accept the 4-year.
I see.
If the other person rescinds her her application.
Well, she has, and since I don't see her on the meeting, we won't consider her for that office.
So, yeah, so I thought I saw an email where she said she asked for that to be withdrawn.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so it sounds like for the Planning Commission, Nancy Lerner would have the 4-year term and Eric would have the 2-year term.
Very well.
That's what Eric's asking for.
Yes.
Eric, is that correct?
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Correct.
That would be Nancy's second term of a full term, and just be an extension of mine while we get in a situation where it's easier to get more applicants.
Good. Eric, thank you very much for your service so far. I really appreciate it. You've done a great job.
Yeah,
thank you, Eric.
Okay, so we'll need to assign the terms now for the Transportation Committee. That's for Ms. Iyer and Mr. Owen. So I'll just drop those in a bucket.
Well, we have 3 openings. We could assign the 2 of them to the 4-year term and leave the 1-year term open.
And we can.
Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
That's a good idea.
I support that.
Yeah.
Okay, the mayor, you're really still thinking.
So why don't we go with that, Anthony? We'll leave the 1-year term open, and that brings us back to the Bike and Ped Committee, where there are 2 applicants for 1 opening.
That's correct. And I don't know if we have any of them on the phone. I know David Jones is here.
Great. David, would you like to make a comment about why you're interested in being on this committee?
Well, I've been cycling around Atherton for decades. We've lived here for 27 years, actually almost 28. And I've certainly have a lot of opinions about how to make both bicycling and pedestrian safety better, especially with likely permanent changes in how people are doing work.
Great. Okay, great. And I don't see Steve on the list.
No, I just did a search and I didn't see him either.
Okay. So we need to vote on Bike and Ped.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how are we going to do that?
So we would need a motion for whichever candidate you'd like, and then we do a roll call vote.
I'd like to make a motion to get David Jones on the Bike and Ped.
I'll second that.
No, third.
Okay. I think we're all on board.
Wiest?
Aye.
Widmer?
Yes.
Lemprus?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Aye.
Yes. And can I get a motion to accept all of the other candidates as with the year terms as determined as we went through them?
So moved.
Okay. Can we have a roll call on that?
Sir Wiest?
Aye.
Widmer?
Aye.
Lemprus?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Aye.
Mayor DeGolia?
Yes.
Can I just get clarification? The second, I got the Lemprus as made the motion, and who was the second on that?
Aye.
Okay, wonderful.
Whoever. It was Bill.
That brings us to item 15.
We got Park and Rec, don't we?
Yes.
Oh, did we? I thought Park and Rec was done.
Well, no.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Matt to that position that we talked to him about just a month ago.
Yes, sir.
Second.
I see. Okay.
Wiest?
Aye.
Widmer?
Aye.
Lemprus?
Aye.
Vice Mayor?
Aye.
Mayor DeGolia.
Yes.
Well, thank you all.
Okay. I think that moves us to adopting the budget.
Did that also cover Frank Merrill's appointment as the?
Yeah, the earlier motion to appoint all the remaining.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor, Council, members of the public. Yes, this item is, can you hear me?
Hear you. We see you and we're running. We're running.
It's our finance director.
He's flying through.
I'm trying to be supersonic with this.
Hi, Robert.
So,
Good to see
Let's
you.
get this done quickly.
my pleasure. So attached before you is adopt attached resolutions adopting the fiscal year 2020-21 operations and capital budget, salary and benefit resolution for unrepresented staff, the 2020-21 salary and classification schedule, and the GAN limit appropriations. Staff is pleased to present the City Council with the balanced annual operating budget for fiscal year 2020-21. Council held 3 public sessions in review of the town operational and capital budgets. You have my staff report before you. Brief highlight: in fiscal year 2020-21, the town is projecting general fund revenues of $16,388,000 against expenditures of $15.24 million. This results in a single year surplus of $1,147,000. And this is before the additional below the line of ERAF of $1,312,000. The town recently issued private placement leaseback financing for cash flow of the construction of the new town center, of which included in the budget are debt service payments of $838,000. With the inclusion of the ERAF and the debt service payments, there is anticipated general fund revenue surplus of $1.6 million in the fiscal year 2021. There is a projected year-end positive fund balance of $26.9 million. Staff incorporated feedback from prior meetings together with any additional adjustments, if any, to our operational and CIP budgets based on identified priorities of projects. A notable change is the attached budget does not include the salary and benefit adjustment placeholders for unrepresented staff. This is a reduction of $66,000 in general fund expenditures. Also in the CIP budget, it includes the rebudget of $149,000 for park hammerhead turnaround at the pavilion and the site lighting at the park. This is a rebudget from this fiscal year into the fiscal year 2021. With that, the town will meet all its reserve requirements of $5,839,000 with an unallocated fund balance of $21,070,000. This unallocated fund balance is allocated toward the construction of the civics of the town center. The fiscal year 2021 GAN limit was calculated using the California percentage change in population and cost of living provided by the State Department of Finance. The GAN limit is $14.3 million. The town is in compliance with this requirement for fiscal year 2021. The council can adopt the accompanying resolutions for fiscal year 2021 operating capital improvement budget, salary and benefit resolution for unrepresented staff, the fiscal year 2021 salary schedules and classifications, and the appropriations GAN limit for fiscal year 2021. This concludes my staff report and presentation. I'll open it up for questions.
Very good, Robert. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you.
Carrie?
No, I was going to say thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If I could, Robert, any new intelligence about the fiscal situation statewide in the next year or two? You know, any more ERAF we're going to lose or anything else?
The ERAF component is still part in the discussion with the state. I think the state's going to approve their budget in the next week or so. It's coming in. There's just discussions with it. There's discussions of switching over the ERAF calculation from the state controller's office to the California Department of Finance, which does more legislative policy rather than the state controller does more of the calculation, the accounting component, and the auditing. So there's still discussion, ongoing discussion with that. ERAF is still looked at. There's been set aside for that by the ERAF counties. There's just anticipation maybe not this year, but next year, meaning fiscal year 21, 22, there could be some changes with the ERAF component. And again, the state's still looking to see about getting some federal funding for their budget as well. So I think it's still all in moving parts right now, but we're continuing to meet with the counties, controller's office, and my counterparts and discussing it. But right now, it's ERAF for the town of Atherton. ERAF is probably the only specific one, we're just monitoring it closely, as there could be some changes in the future. I mean, again, we planned on it over the years, that, you know, and that's why we moved it below the line in our budget, that eventually will go away, and we created a policy for using it towards capital projects, one time towards debt service, and, you know, obviously it's going to be used for civic center or retiring long-term unfunded liabilities. But as we kind of get a final word, we'll kind of continue to plan on using it for debt service, and then making the adjustments as we need.
Other than ERAF, I'm sorry, but other than ERAF, no change. Your confidence has not changed at all in any of the other numbers.
Correct. Yeah. We the only other ones is the property taxes. It's still the numbers still are accurate. We'll look into that as we get into next calendar year, how that will change. The only other thing would be sales tax, but we put measures in place to really reduce our budget in this next coming fiscal year on sales tax.
Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and, you know, of course, George has been on these calls, as you have also. You know, Jerry Hill spoke about ERAF just a week ago, and he was extremely negative about it. It said that he didn't think it was going to survive, and that he felt that the Bay Area Coalition, obviously both senators and assemblymen, said that, you know, of course, they were meeting this past weekend to discuss and make a strategy. And then today on the call, Kevin Mullen said that ERAF probably was not going to survive. It was going to go towards education. And although there wasn't a whole lot of detail, but anyway, so you know, honestly, I'm not so sure that it's the outlook is so rosy, and we should probably plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Correct. And we have contingencies in place as far as understanding if ERAF does go away. You know, we've only counted it for the fiscal year 2021 and 21-22, but after that, we're not counting on it. So we'll continue to monitor it. And you know, the sentiments you got, the same thing I got meeting with the county controller's office is, you know, it's something that could move and will go away. We just don't know how fast, and we'll find out hopefully in July and August of these next 2 months.
Robert,
how that'll transpire.
Robert,
yes.
the total amount of ERAF that we've counted on over the next 2 fiscal years, because it goes away after that, is $2.4 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, Robert, through the mayor.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So let's see, last Thursday, Friday, did our bank account increase by any?
No, not, it did, but it's being held, yes. It's being held by an escrow, but our Vice Mayor, yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. So we did close on the lease private placement last Thursday, and the funds were transferred to BOKF. That's the escrow agent for Capital One, and there's $7.5 million and some change, $7,516,000 in the escrow account, and we plan to submit our application payment from SJ Amoroso that we received to withdraw that money. And so we'll be withdrawing 2.1 million of that 7.5 million to make the payment. So we're going to use those funds first, and we'll use them up pretty fast in the next couple months.
And could you just explain to council that it's no longer a COP, certificate of participation, you're calling it a private placement because only one lender actually funded the entire amount, correct?
Correct. Yes, it's a lease back agreement. Basically, it's not a COP, but it falls within our purview as a municipal agency for the lease payments as paying it back. It's a similar structure of a COP, but it's a lease back agreement that we basically all the documents that the council adopted in May. It's between Capital One, and we have a lease agreement, we have a site agreement, and an escrow agent that holds our funds.
And just one other little point that I think is really, just 1 second, that I think is important to note is that once the town center project is completed, the lease agreement on the park will be released, not leased. So it will not be held as collateral. Did I say that right?
Correct.
Roberta?
Yes. And as soon as the town center is complete in July of, that's the anticipation, July of next year, or whenever Marty,
Gets
says
it
that it's ready. Right. You're right. The park will be removed and the town center will be put on the lease as the collateral. And again, it's a 10-year agreement with a 5-year call option. So we'll
Robert, on the budget, do we need an action?
Yes. If you can adopt the, thank you, Mayor, for that, and Vice Mayor. Yeah, if you can adopt the 4 resolutions in the staff report, I can read them out for you, and then the council can adopt them. So adopting the accompanying resolutions. What was that? Go ahead.
We don't need them read. We can all see it. Can we get a motion?
Happy to move it or second it.
I'm trying to end the meeting.
Well, I'll second it after Councilmember Lemprus. The 4 resolutions. Mona, do we have to read these aloud?
The council can move the staff's recommended actions before you in one motion.
Okay, I think that's what Councilmember
That's what we
Lemprus
just did. Yeah.
Right.
Or Elizabeth, you can done it. I don't care whether.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine.
Great. Can we get a roll call?
Aye.
Whitmer,
Yes.
Lemprus,
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Aye.
Yes.
Yay.
Good job, Robert.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Really
Appreciate
good.
it.
Motion to
Robert, you
adjourn.
and your crew. Kudos all around.
Kudos. Yes.
Yes. Great staff, great collective group effort, teamwork.
So moved.
This is a beautiful finance packet. Really beautiful finance packet. Nice job.
Thank you.
I like the
Particularly
paper you
meaningful
did
when
in
you're
it.
looking at those 3 jets.
I was trying to figure out, I didn't, but I was going to find a bank vault and put myself in a bank vault. So next time.
That could come off poorly, I think. Nice job.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
You have a final public comment period, sir.
Oh, I do have public comment. Is it, and we have a couple of people that might give them. So is there any public comment?
I haven't received anything.
Greg? No?
I
Okay.
just have one
Oh, there's the
comment.
hand.
Can I just have one comment? I really like it if during these meetings, it would be nice. I love seeing Robert in his Top Gun thing, but I really like just being able to see him and see his face and everything. And so to the extent, and I don't know, I just think it would be really helpful if we could all be live on the Zoom events. And there you go, Anthony. Hey, there you are. So I don't know, maybe you're not in a position to do it or not, but I think we
Then you
should.
see the beverage, the adult beverage.
Right.
No.
I know we're disintegrating with these comments, but I do have a public comment. Mr. Conlon,
Oh, good, Greg.
his hand is up. There he is.
I'm still with you, but I'm fading fast.
Okay.
I spent the
Well, we
weekend-
all fade at 10.
When we discussed a fire that destroyed 418 homes. And I just think that Walsh Road is still on my to-do list, but not getting much action. So if one or more of you want to kick me, I'll try and get something done on that.
You mean we got to kick you to get you started, just like that old motorcycle kick started?
That's right. I've got a lot on my plate, and it's just hard to figure. But the compensation isn't too good.
We understand that.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I won't bother you tonight, but it hasn't gone away.
All right. Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay, thank you, everybody. I think that's the end.
Okay. See you.
Nice
Bye.
to see you all. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Hey, George, drive safely.